And did Biden just violate the American contract? That's the question we ask in tonight's preamble. Since the day the Constitution was ratified, enemies of America have been working to unwind the protections it provides to our people. The constitutional conservative knows and understands that the Constitution puts restraints on government, not the people, by clearly articulating what government can and can't do. The Founding Fathers knew that government was, at best, a necessary evil, so they sought to limit its power and scope to make sure you and your family could remain free and prosperous to the greatest extent possible, consistent with a civilized society. The founders feared government's enormous power to harm we the people. Our third president, Thomas Jefferson, wrote, "Experience hath shown that even under the best forms of government, those entrusted with the power have in time and by slow operations perverted it into tyranny." Sound familiar? If not, this will. James Madison warning in a speech at the 1787 Constitutional Convention. The means of defense against a foreign danger historically have become the instruments of tyranny at home. So it's quite clear that the framers were leery of an all-powerful government and viewed an unrestricted government as the enemy of your freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So they meticulously constructed the Constitution to place chains on government to keep you free. Big government control freaks have never liked that. Case in point, Barack Hussein Obama, the man who is enjoying his unconstitutional third term by being that devilish little voice filling Joe Biden's empty head. In a 2001 interview, then Senator Barack Hussein Obama let us know how much he loathed our mutual compact, the Constitution.
To that extent, as radical as I think people tried to characterize the Warren Court, it wasn't that radical. It didn't break free from the essential constraints that were placed by the Founding Fathers in the Constitution, at least as it's been interpreted, and Warren Court interpreted it in the same way, that generally the Constitution is a charter of negative liberties, says what the states can't do to you, says what the federal government can't do to you, but it doesn't say what the federal government or the state government must do on your behalf.
So Obama and his Marxist ilk look at restrictions on government as, quote, negative liberties and a major impediment to government running your life and creating their left-wing utopia. Obama and his left-wingers are only concerned with government's rights, not yours. That was illustrated as Obama's people rolled out their vision for a ministry of truth this week.
Our Undersecretary for Policy, Rob Silvers, is co-chair with our principal deputy general counsel, Jennifer Gaskell, in leading a just recently constituted misinformation, disinformation governance board. So we're bringing, the goal is to bring the resources of the department together to address this threat.
In response to free speech returning to the private company Twitter, Joe Biden's government announced it would begin policing free speech and using the full force of government to make determinations on what was true and what wasn't. The person who will be running this unconstitutional board is a woman by the name of Nina Jankowicz. She has a long history of left-wing expression, even saying that Americans are a little too, quote, free-spirited when many opposed lockdowns for the China virus. She also infamously classified the Hunter Biden laptop as disinformation, a story we all know now is true. So naturally, Obama's team that is running Biden wants to put a propagandist in charge of passing judgment on Americans' free speech. That leads me to the biased press. And now we can add the word uneducated to describe the majority of the press. They are people who make their living by virtue of the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. And what was their major concern upon hearing about this so-called misinformation board?
She had previously called the Hunter Biden laptop a Trump campaign product, seeming to discredit its validity or validity of reporting surrounding that. How can you assuage concerns of people who are looking at this person who's been appointed to this position and wondering if she's going to be able to accurately judge misinformation now that a lot of that reporting has been proven to be factual in some ways?
Dear God, their first question was about the qualifications of the leftist who would oversee this board, not whether or not the board was legal or constitutional. The First Amendment reads, quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition their government for a redress of grievances, end quote. Put in plain English, the government has no right, authority, or business policing speech in America. It is prohibited from doing so expressly in the Constitution. Shouldn't a group of people like the press who make their living off the First Amendment be, kind of familiar with it? Again, uneducated. Here's how Psaki responded to the questions about Biden's Ministry of Truth.
Well, I don't have any comments on the laptop, but what I can tell you is that it sounds like the objective of the board is to prevent disinformation and misinformation from traveling around the country in a range of communities. I'm not sure who opposes that effort.
You're not sure who opposes that? Okay. Only those of us who are real Americans, who know the constitutional role of the federal government. That group seems to exclude you and your unconstitutional and corrupt administration, Ms. Psaki. The U.S. Constitution is our handshake, our agreement with one another. It's a contract that tells all Americans how we will conduct our affairs in this country. The Biden administration betrays that agreement at every turn. Their disinformation board is merely the latest, most obvious, and most in-your-face example. Question. If Biden's government no longer wishes to hold up their end of the bargain by no longer complying with restrictions placed on it by the Constitution, under what obligation are our people to respect the authority of Biden's government?